We're live, everybody. Watch out.
Watch out.
Look at this. We're live, but nobody's on the camera. Surprise! I'm here. How's that for the intro?
I like it.
You know, all the popular YouTubers, they've got this intro that...
I just got to rewatch.
They got this intro that, like, you know, they always do it the same way.
Yeah.
So that people know their content. Maybe that could be our new one. Look at this. There's nobody on the stream. Surprise! You clicked on the wrong thing.
I'm here. I like it.
Yeah, that's funny. Welcome everybody, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen. Actually, these days, Mike.
Yes.
We are 9% female.
We are 9% female.
Our viewers are 9%
Okay.
females.
Yeah.
It used to be like 4.5% females. And then in some of the videos, it's even 0 or 1%. And so we're going up in the females. And I think it has something to do with the longer hair. Because chicks dig guys with long hair. Or maybe they don't. I think what it is we got a whole bunch of new viewers on the camper video. And the campers are loved by the ladies.
Hear that, everyone? Campers are loved by the ladies.
Yeah, so, yeah, you can definitely... Ooh, just look. Bill says, hello and welcome, Engineering Explained. I have no idea what you're talking about, Bill Courtney.
Oh, his intro. Like, everyone doing the same intros. Maybe that's
alright. And Tater's got a Tate. Yeah, you're right about that. I do need a mullet, and that's what's coming next. I've already told my wife about it. She's like, what's a mullet? I don't know about that. And I said, just you wait and see. You're going to love this. You're going to love it in a 1987 kind of way.
Waiting patiently for the mullet.
Oh, it's not coming yet. If you really want to do the mullet, you got to get pretty long hair before you go for it. Because you don't want to be in that position. You don't want to be in that position where you cut it off and you're like, this is cool, but it could be cooler.
Oh.
Or maybe you wouldn't feel that way once you give yourself a mullet. Maybe you wouldn't think it's cool.
I don't think so, but...
It's like it's like having kids. You don't realize what it's like until it actually happens.
Oh, the perm in the back.
And Bill Courtney, divorce papers in 3, 2, 1? I don't think so. My wife has agreed to also do a mullet at the same time as me.
Really?
I'm waiting for her to say, no, I haven't.
Yes, so was I. I was like, what? But
I am waiting for green tea if there's anyone who's super nice and is looking for a promotion. Okay, so this is a Q&A live stream, so feel free to ask your questions and I will give you the answers, and then sometimes Mike will give you the answers because he's right here with me. Mike Dennis.
I'm your right
29 years old, is that right?
Yes.
Mike is 29 years old. And so, if you are younger than that, then...
Mike is older than you. So there. Take that.
And older people rule!
Yeah.
Until you reach a certain age. At which age do you not want to be an older person?
Once you hit 30.
30?
I don't know.
Did you ever...
No, sorry. I was just thinking when you said I'm 29, I'm like, man, I'm going to be 30 soon.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks, man. It's all downhill once you reach 30. It definitely when it comes to stomach fat. There's no avoiding it once you reach 30. It just... You suddenly have to start eating healthy.
Damn.
Yeah, Bill, I would like to know how old you are. And I think everyone else in the chat would also like to know how old you are. 55 plus.
It is not my birthday.
To answer the question from Nismo Funes, I've been in Japan since 2006, and then we arrived in early November. So this November will be 13 years.
13.
And Bill Courtney, my mom was a very young mother when she had me, and so if I'm 36, then you can kind of guess what that might be. She was in her 20s, early 20s. This has taken a weird turn, hasn't it? This is the birthday live stream. Does anyone else in the office wanna chip in on this? Naoko, you want to tell everyone how old you are? That was a mean thing to say. I'm sorry, Naoko. How do I buy cars from you if I live in Hawaii? That's a weird one. A number of JDM cars make their way to Hawaii, but they don't really allow them to come in. And so I think that you might have to do a little bit of shady business in order to import to Hawaii. Do you know anything about that, Mike?
No. Some people said that they've been able to do it, but we can't.
Yeah, and Hawaii has so many good things going for you that if you have to miss out on the JDM cars for a bit, then it's so sad for you.
Yeah. You have to surf instead and enjoy the beach and luxury.
Speaking of the beach, Mike, I went to the beach on Saturday.
Oh, really? Which one?
I went surfing, but
Really?
I didn't actually go surfing because I don't know how to surf. I just kind of splashed in the waves.
Wait,
like a 4-year-old. Yay! Pardon me?
Like body surfing or?
Nah, we didn't actually go in. So my kids were sleeping in the car, right? And then we didn't want to wake them up because as parents, when your kids are sleeping in the car, you're like,
yes.
Oh, I have like at least an hour where I don't have to be a parent anymore. Yeah. So we needed to just drive around pointlessly, and we ended up going to the beach. And then the kids woke up as soon as we got there, and we're like, let's go splash in the water. But we didn't have swimsuits, and so we just kind of splashed in the water a little bit.
Enoshima?
Yeah, it was. We went to a beach that was sort of halfway between Kamakura and Fujisawa. I think that's the next city where Enoshima is.
Yeah. Yeah,
you can see Enoshima from where we were. Very nice. And the waves were pretty big. Waves were like 150 centimeters.
Whoa, people surfing?
Yeah, a lot of people surf there, but the waves don't usually get that big. So there were a lot of surfers. Ryan, our 4-year-old, in case you don't know this, Ryan woke up and he was still kind of sleepyhead, and he looked out the window and he said, "I see penguins!" Because everyone was wearing their black rash guards. I see penguins! And in his little mind, penguins exist in Japan.
Penguins
He
surf.
just hasn't seen them yet.
Penguins surf.
Okay, so Mike, give me some questions. I want to answer some difficult ones. Who's got the difficult questions? I have gotten to a point in my life where I am now extremely smart, and so none of the questions faze me anymore.
Oh.
That's a challenge.
There you go. Everyone's
You're looking for a coaster?
Faze Derek with your questions.
Yeah. You can call me Faze Derek. I'm part of the Faze clan.
Oh yeah. What is it? No, that's...
This is a good question. Maybe this one is also good for you to answer, Mike. Are you worried about Fukushima radiation living in Japan?
I'd hold my breath if I had to drive close to it.
Fukushima's pretty far away.
Yeah.
But
I've heard that some seafood could be affected or is affected in a certain area, but I don't know where. Someone was telling me if you get seafood from Hokkaido, it's better or it's safer, and some people have been avoiding seafood if it's caught in certain areas, but I honestly haven't noticed that.
I would not like to have that sort of constraint where I go to the store and I'm like, what do I want to eat? Oh, I want some salmon. And then go, now I have to find out where this came from?
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of falls into the same thing as like people want to move to Japan, but they don't know what it's like to live here. And that's kind of one of the things you have to get used to, is that when you go to the store, a lot of the labels you won't be able to read, like where your fish comes from, as an example. And so for me, even if I was worried about that, I would be happier moving out of the country than having to learn how to find out where your fish comes from.
Yeah, if you want to concern yourself with that, then it could take a toll on you, I think.
I'm looking for superpowers, and so I'm hoping that radiation comes and gives me superpowers.
Radiation?
Nah, that's gamma rays, man.
Damn. What is nuclear? You just explode.
I don't know. So there's not an awful lot in the news here in Japan about that. And then whenever I read about the radiation concern, most of the people with the loudest voices about that don't make their arguments in a way that convinces me that this is a concern. There's a lot of people that are shouting like fear-mongering, And
Right.
whenever I hear arguments that are like relying too heavily on fear in order to sell their point, it makes me not want to believe that at all.
Yeah.
And
Go with the
so,
factual
and then
approach.
most of the sources that I trust are not very interested in that story at the moment. And so while it might be something that could be a concern, like I think if it were a concern, it would be easier for us to tell. I think that the people who are most worried that there's suppression of information are like conspiracy theory type people. And those types of people will be worried about everything. And I don't want to live a life where I'm worrying about everything so much, even if it means I'll maybe live 2 or 5 years shorter because of radiation. I don't know. It is a weird thing to think about. Maybe I haven't really put together an idea in my mind about how that works, but I don't know. From what I've seen and when I was concerned about it, it seemed like this really wasn't that much of a concern. Like if you go and take a look at the level of radiation in the soil around here, or basically on anything that you touch, it's going to be about the same as it is basically around the world, with small spikes in very discrete areas, which is something that you also get around the world as well. And so to me, I don't really notice any, or don't think that there is any difference at all in that. So that was a difficult question. Good one. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. It doesn't affect my day-to-day life.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was most concerning for the year after it happened, and particularly because like it happened in 2011, and we started this company in 2008, and so this is where our company was 3 years in, and so it's like, do we have to leave Japan? Are we going to be able to export cars? We actually took on an extra cost because all the cars have to be radiation tested here in Japan before they're exported, so that was an extra cost, and we take that cost ourselves. We don't charge the customers that, so that's 2,500 yen per car, or like $20 a car. Yeah. Who wants to talk about something that's nicer? How about the HBO miniseries Chernobyl? No, we're done talking about radiation.
I'm trying to find some more questions for you.
Can you find Lexus in Japan? What do Japanese think about people from North America and other countries buying old Japanese cars? Do Japanese like older Japanese cars? Ooh, this is a multi-layered question. Are you ready to peel back the layers, Mike?
Let's start peeling.
Number one, can you find Lexus in Japan?
Yes.
Can you personally find Lexus? I'm going to put
Yes.
you on like a hunt for Lexus. Go find
Yes.
one and take a picture and then bring it to the live chat.
Oh, right now?
No, don't do that. But
I was hoping
Mike has to leave in like 10 minutes here to go do a pickup and drop off, so it's just going to be me after that. Oh, what was the rest of those questions? Okay, the next one. What do Japanese people think about North America and other countries buying old Japanese cars? So, I think that most people in Japan will think that it's awfully weird because they won't realize, because they hadn't really had an opportunity to think about it, that people in other countries want cars that are older in Japan, because people in Japan don't want the older cars. To an average person, when they see a 25-year-old car, they're going to be like, why is that car even on the street? That is so strange. And then when they hear that the demand goes up and the prices go up for these cars once they reach 25 years old, they might be very surprised to hear that people, especially in North America, a first world country, would be interested in what is a disposable car to the general populace in Japan. And so I think that's probably 90 to 95% of the population would think that. And then when it comes to car people, I think that there are a number of car people that like classic cars that are disappointed in the fact that a lot of the very special cars from the 70s and 80s are now leaving Japan, and then it's going to be harder for Japanese enthusiasts to get cars that are like that because the price goes up, or because, you know, it's very easy to have a nationalistic sense here in that these are Japanese cars, they deserve to be in Japan, and then other people taking them away are taking away from us. And Japan as a whole is a fairly nationalistic country in that respect, or in basically many respects.
What about, I mean, what you said, right? People not really wanting old cars, and then I guess the popular cars, people will have a sense of like, I wish these would stay in Japan, but so many new cars keep coming out and they're for sale here. What do you think is a bigger driving factor? People wanting new cars, or people wanting to preserve their history and their heritage?
The people who, well, I don't know. There might be a bit of a motai feeling for people who would never buy used old classic Japanese cars themselves. Motai, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess. It's a Japanese word that means it's a bit of a shame. Like they might think, well, I'll never have a Japanese classic car myself, but you know, it kind of sucks that this is happening. I can't believe it. That's too bad. I think that's probably most of them. Very, very few people want classic cars here in Japan, but the people who do really love them.
Yeah. Yeah, and they'll pay a lot for them. Like the AE86 is a pretty good example of that.
That's true. Do you like older Japanese women? I mean, older Japanese cars, Mike?
Yeah, I do.
Was that for the first question or the second one?
Was that entrapment?
That's not entrapment. Entrapment would be like... No, entrapment means that you convince somebody else to do a crime. So liking older women is not a crime yet. But secondly, it would be sort of like if liking older Japanese women were a crime, it would be like, hey Mike, what are you doing tonight? This is role play, so you gotta answer.
Oh, wait, am I the guy?
No, you're the guy. We're just Mike and Derek.
Oh,
getting entrapped, and I'm the entrapper, and you're the entrappee.
I'm going home tonight to eat dinner.
Oh, you know where I'm going tonight?
Where are you going?
There's this club, and all of the girls are like 65 years old and beautiful.
I'm like, oh, that sounds great.
Well, you can come with me if you'd like.
Are we going on a date?
Just remember, don't say anything to your girlfriend, and don't say anything to the police, because, you know, I'm your boss. It's really easy to entrap people when you're their boss, and it would be a shame if you got a demotion.
It'd be a real shame.
That's entrapment.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we have in terms of questions? Do you know somebody in the USA who works with your clients filling out the ISF form? Javier. Did you ever buy from us? It kind of sounds like the answer is no, because you would have already known the answer to this. In the USA, they're very concerned about terrorism coming in the forms of containers. It sounds crazy because it is. Yeah, the ISF is in response to the 9/11 attacks. And so they don't want terrorism coming in shipping containers. And so they made it a rule. And
what do they do?
The US is the only country that does this. They made it a rule that to the US Customs, you have to claim who it is sending the container. And so we have to fill out a special form for the US because of this. It's a pain in the butt. And it's not like the terrorists are going to be like, nope, we are good guys. Please do not check this container. That was my half Middle Eastern, half Russian terrorist. Remember in the 80s, I don't know if you remember this, but all the movies in the 80s had Russian bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
And then around like the turn of the century, they all turned into Middle Eastern bad guys. All the terrorists.
What is that? What's the word?
Racism.
Yeah, racist propaganda.
Yeah, it's all those coastal elites. They're trying to dictate what happens around the world. Where was I going here?
King said, "Oh boy, these."
Oh, the ISF forms. I'm not reading that far down. Okay, so for the ISF, we make the form for you, and then we either supply you with the form or deliver it directly to the customs broker if you use our recommended broker. And so it really couldn't be easier. There are a lot of exporters that, at least back when the US just started getting popular, nobody knew about the ISF form, and if you don't file it, customs is able to bill you $5,000 penalty, which they never do. But you need to file it before the vessel leaves. But the thing with ro-ro shipping is that the vessels, like the bill of lading was not completed until the vessel would leave, but you need the information on the bill of lading in order to fill out the ISF. So right at the beginning, this was a huge pain in the butt, but it isn't so much anymore, and most exporters know how to do that, how to fill out that form. So really no issue. Some of them don't. Some of them leave it up to you, and then you have to fill out your own, and that's a pain in the butt, but we do it for you. So couldn't be easier. Anything to add, Mike D?
I think a lot of people get worried because, like, as a customs broker, you would want to be informing all of your customers about potential problems and things that they need to get done, and then there are deadlines for things. So when people get an email saying, like, if the ISF isn't completed, there's like a $5,000 fine. People are like, "Whoa! I don't want to pay $5,000," and they're automatically assuming they're going to have to pay that. So it's a
That's a good point, and a good point to be importing through a broker instead of importing yourself. Because if you do want to import yourself, you wouldn't even know that this is required until you get the form saying you are in violation of import rules.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh no. So.
Somebody here, AW Daltima2, says maybe in Canada your hair was straight and now your hair is curly. That happens after my friend did chemo. That was like a plot twist at the end there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So my hair in Japan gets curlier because of humidity in the air, because it's so humid here compared to most other non-tropical countries, and especially compared to Canada, which is a relatively dry country in most areas of it. And yeah, my hair is a little, as you can see here, it kind of goes up like that. A little
like
bit curlier. I mean, it's always kind of been like that, but it's a little bit more here in Japan. And then I don't have any special information about chemotherapy. I'm sorry. I don't know, and I'm sorry that your friend has to go through chemo. All right, what's the full explanation of the commonly repeated "it's expensive to own older cars in Japan"? Pete Delarco. Okay, Pete, Mike, do you know the answer to this one?
It's a myth. Busted.
Yeah, yes and no. So
it's a myth for the expense portion, but true for a mindset.
Right, and so a lot of people say that cars in Japan are cheap because when they get old, it costs more to register them.
Right.
That part's true. Once the car is 13 years old, then you have to pay extra fee. The extra amount is like 5 or 10%, and so it's a very negligible amount. Of course, the Japanese government wants to encourage people to always be buying new cars because the economy has a strong presence with automotive manufacturers. But that 5 or 10% is not going to make much of a difference. And if you're owning an old car, you're already paying more than 5 or 10% in terms of fuel because of bad fuel economy, or because of repairs, because a 13-plus-year-old car is going to break down more often. And so really, people overplay it. And I think part of that has to do with the idea that when people know a little tidbit of information about another country, they tend to believe they know more or want to explain to people more and give more of a, look at me, I'm cool, I know stuff about Japan kind of impression. And I think that just overpowers common sense.
Do we have any jump boxes here?
We have 2 in the BB.
Cool.
In the back.
I will take one just in case.
Sure thing. All right, now Mike's going to be gone. He might come back before the end of the stream. We got another 35 minutes here. We're actually, it's funny because we've been looking at the entire stream right now with just this screen here with no cars to take a look at. So it looks like Bill Courtney wants to send in an 8.6. We'll have a look at that. And maybe for the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'll just take a look at cars and talk about or explain cars. So if anyone has a free second, go to the auction tool here. It says auction.pacificcoastjdm.com. It's right here at the bottom. And then you can log in with the guest account and browse the cars. Pick some cars for us to talk about, and we'll talk about them. Just make sure that any of the ones that are USS auctions, see this one here, don't send in any of those ones. You know what, it might be okay for us to actually show that now, because I don't think that people are going to come after us like they did in the past. Maybe they will, though, but we can't show it anyway. Very funny, Bill. I have hurt feelings now. Okay, so an 8.6 here. We'll have a look at this. Actually, just take a look at the pictures here. Aftermarket seat. This is a late model version. They got different seats in the late model after 1986. The 2 that, I don't know if my wife is here, the 2 that my wife owned were both late models. One was 86 and one was an 87. In Japan they started in 83, but in Canada they started in 85. Okay, so this one here is 11. If you're in North America, like Canada or the US, you guys never got the exposed headlight version of this. So they all had pop-up headlights, the Sprinter Trudeau. I think the Sprinter Trudeau is more expensive. I think when they were brand new, they were more expensive. For one, pop-up headlights was a more expensive thing for the company to engineer and to manufacture, and so they would go on the higher end version of the car. Nowadays, prices are close to the same, and then some of the initial D-inspired ones, they'll pay more for the pop-up headlights because that's the one that was in the famous anime for that car. Anyway, this is a 1986 Corolla 11. They don't say which version of it is. It's like a GT Apex or GT 1600cc super slow engine, 120 horsepower in Japan. Octane rated R with an interior D and unknown mileage with 215,000 kilometers on here. And so most likely it's more than 215,000 kilometers. For an 8.6, the mileage doesn't really matter that much. You'll find that if you find one with under 100,000 kilometers, you're probably going to pay a very, very expensive fee for it. But the car as a whole is very reliable, especially the engine is reliable. And they're very simple and easy to fix. And parts are easy to find and available at the moment. And so mileage isn't really that much of a concern if you buy one of these. Looking back at the sheet here, it says various modifications to the car, so see in person for details. It has aftermarket suspension and exhaust and other modifications. I guess the seller didn't really want to say. Maybe they didn't know that well. Very common to have modified engines in these, even engine swaps. So I wouldn't be surprised if this engine has things like an exhaust header, individual throttle bodies, other modifications like that. And so at the body we have S1 here, which is minor rust and paint peeling here. It's kind of weird to have this low amount of rust on the body for one of these. Even 10 years ago they were quite rusty cars, and so that's a plus for this one. It says dashboard is cracked, spare tire is missing, headliner has a stain, exterior has a really bad repaint, AC doesn't work. Now the Canadian ones, I don't think most of the Canadian ones came with AC, but all the Japanese ones did, except for the one of the models didn't come with it, didn't come with AC or power steering. The horn button is missing, has various aftermarket parts and modifications to it. The battery is dead. The rear garnish area is bent in, so like this area here that goes around the license plate. Rear floor is dented and has a corrosion hole, kind of a common thing on these. Engine oil leak, various repair marks to the car, so that would be accident repair marks. There's something that I can't read that says unknown. I think that it says the unknown mileage, but it is kind of a weird location for that to be written. Mind you, it is, if you take a look here, written in kind of a different font than the other ones. So maybe it was written with a different pencil or pen later. Underside has a scuff, dented, surface rust, and not the seller, but the auction thinks that the engine has been swapped out. So, because it says the engine swapped with a question mark, but they don't know for certain. So there's a chance it's a silver top or black top engine. These came originally with the blue top. But some people will swap the red top in, even though the blue top's kind of a more suitable engine. What else? Number plate has been removed off of the front. No, that's not right. Let's see. Number plate is put on the car. Oh, because the car doesn't have registration, but it still has the plates. I see. Aero parts scratched, cracked, and paint peeling, and the trunk interior liners have been removed and door mirror scratched. So when you see a lot of comments in this section here, it usually means a fairly poor condition car. As far as the 8.6 goes, this one's not in that poor of condition. The mileage being unknown kind of sucks, but the body is fairly straight. The bad paint on it is kind of bad, but you know, these are getting to be old cars. There aren't any more of them in really good condition that you can get for a reasonable price. In terms of price for this, I'd say we're probably looking around $6,000 to $7,000 for purchasing, plus the costs of exporting and other fees on top of that. Okay, so let's see what else somebody sent in. We got Elias R. Let's have a look at this one. A Wagon R 5069. You know, the GTR is like the GTR. R is cool if we put it on our car. And then Suzuki was like, watch this. We can have more R's than you. And they came up with a car called Wagon R is the name of the car. And then the RR is the sports car version of it. They're like, look at us. We can have 2 R's plus the R in our name. Wagon R. I wish I had Mike to laugh at this because I know that he would. It kind of sounds like a pirate laughing. And then since nobody's laughing right now, I feel awkward for saying that. So Wagon R is just like most other K cars. These are all very similar. You'll get a lot of room inside. There's a 4-seater. You get good fuel economy on it. It's cool looking if you like this kind of boxy looking car. I've always really liked the front end with the headlights. Looks like it's kind of in poor condition paint-wise. Let's have a look at the sheet. Actually, let's put this down. Kind of looks like a minivan, but keep in mind this is micro size. It's like the size of an Austin Mini. And interior. Peeling steering wheel. Yeah, this looks terrible. Terrible car. And an automatic transmission. That's a shame. If it was a manual, at least it would have some saving grace. So 152,000 kilometers. This is a 2004. This is in really rough shape for a 2004. Auction grade 3.5. Interior, exterior D. Looking at the body, it says the bumper needs to be replaced. Bad paint on the hood. Corrosion over here in the back fender. And then various scratches and dents that aren't really that bad. The exterior has a lot of paint fade. Core support is bent. Right front side member is dented. Now that would be considered accident damage. Both of these, the core support and the left rear side member. But the reason why it doesn't get an R is because nothing was replaced. Nothing was repaired. And so although they're damaged, there wasn't an actual repair done to this car. And so it would have been small enough that nothing is required to be done. Okay, headliner stained a lot. Kind of a weird comment. That would absolutely turn me off on this one, even if that was the only problem with it. Headliners are difficult. Some of them you can't wash very easily at all. Steering wheel grip is ripped. Interior is dirty. End panel is dented. That's another thing that could be considered an accident damage. Underside surface rust. Exterior shallow scratches. Dashboard has glue on it. AC doesn't work well. Engine oil leak. And side mirror electric folding function doesn't work. And yeah, it's not going to sell for really anything. The starting price is nothing. This is the kind of car that sells for like 5,000 yen or 40 bucks. No exaggeration there. That's what this is probably going to sell for. And there's not really much purpose to buy this other than for parts, because you don't have to spend that much more to get a good condition version of these. Maybe you can get one for like $200. And then that would be in much, much, much better condition than this one. Not legal in the US yet, though. Like an R. Esty has issues with the site. Esty, maybe your issue is that you didn't log in. Go to auction.pacificcoastjdm.com and then log in as the guest. The guest information for you is right here. Log in as guest, password is Pacific Coast. Just put it in up here and then sign in. Couldn't be easier. Okay, what's the reason the US auction houses USA auction doesn't have pics of their cars? I think that might have been an autocorrect, the USS auction. So I just asked this last week to the company that makes the auction tool, and the pictures exist, and I'm supposed to come up with examples. So if you find any examples of the pictures missing, like sometimes the USS auctions will have the sheet, and then there will be no pictures of the cars. The weird thing is that they exist. If you go like this, like view image, and you get just the image, notice at the top how it says number 0. If you go number 1, you get the next picture. And if you go number 2, you get the next picture, and so on, right? So you can still see the USS pictures if you do it that way, which is a workaround for now. Hopefully they can fix that pretty soon. But if I find another example of that, I'm going to be sending it to that company in hopes that they fix it. Toyota Serras are really rare, Russell. They don't come up very often anymore. They are old and they were cheap cars, and so not a lot of them survived to this long, to 30 years old. So Creative Boy, you got an RX-7 for us? Ah, I got the itchy nose again. What's going on? Ah, this is every time I get on live. It's like, you're live. My brain's like, I don't want you to be here right now. I'm going to make your nose itchy. Okay, Spirit A version. Spirit A is value, maybe about 30% up from the regular version of the RX-7. They have various things on them. I don't know because, to be honest, I just really haven't cared enough to put that into long-term storage in my mind. I've read it a few times. I think that you get, I think these red seats are part of the Spirit A. They were made during the final year of the RX-7's production, and they're limited edition, maybe something like 500 cars or so. They tend to be in better condition usually because they were seen as the best FD that you could get, and so people would spend more money for them, and the cars that more people spent money on, the cars that people spent more money on would typically be taken better care of because they would be owned by people who don't have the financial distress that causes people to not take care of their cars. Of course, this is all on average, and so in this case here, it looks like the car's not in the best of conditions. Hello, Ayako. Mike's not here. Do you want to be my co-host?
What's up?
Mike's not here. Do you want to be my co-host? Guns GTR price is 2.5 to 3 million for an R32 right now. That's in yen. So accident damage with a roof that has been replaced. That's something that most people are going to be shying away from. Also the fender, the side sill, and the rear fender. Oddly, not the door. The door was fine. The fenders were bad. Okay, let's see. Right front inner panel dented, core support dented, right front pillar has paint repair marks in the very least. Roof has been replaced. Tires are cracked. Cracked tires are often from old tires, like the original tires on the car. And then the mileage is low, they never replace the tires, and then they crack because of they get dried out over time. These wheels, I think, are the original wheels on the Spirit A version of the car. Engine oil leak. The steering wheel has a lot of wear on it. You can't really see it in the picture, but there's a perforated leather here on this section of it, and then the perforations tend to rip into each other, making it feel rough. Looks like the bottom of it is also worn out. Yep, and some paint peeling over here, paint cracks over here, paint fade over here. As far as the Spirit A's go, it's not going to sell for that much, but it will sell for more than the regular RX-7 still. 70,000 kilometers, and then, you know, it's so easy for a company to buy this and then import it to their country and then sell it as if it's never been in an accident and just not mention it to anybody. Spirit A's are going to be in high demand enough that this will be a target car for that kind of a scam. And so I'd say, well, starting price is 1.7 million. To me, that already feels like it's too expensive. But probably the seller knows that despite the roof roll, or maybe he didn't even know it had been rolled, and that's why the starting price is so high. I don't know. High chance of this one just going unsold. 1.7 seems too high. Scrolling down, scrolling down. Whoa. It just skipped all the way down. Oh, man. You cannot ship parts inside the car unless you ship by container, in which case you can. Some countries allow you to ship parts inside the car, but usually not. If it's not attached to the vehicle, you are liable for penalty. No, customs will usually just throw the part out if it's not attached. They won't give any sort of a penalty. If you attach something to the car, like say side skirts or something, and you don't actually write it on the shipping list and give it a value for paying taxes when it lands, then they might just take it away from you. But it's really not that hard. You create a special form saying these are the inner cargo parts of the car, this is how much they're worth, this is their origin country, and then you import them like you would any other part. But usually when we ship things with inner cargo, we need to ask permission first. And usually the only inner cargo that we're allowed to ship roll and roll off is when we can't otherwise ship the car. For example, the bumper or the side skirts are too low. If it's just like a box of rotors or some tires, they won't let us do that. Lots of good Altezza RS200s at auction from Mr. 9AMAC8. Very easy to buy, prices are reasonable, and they've become something of a popular race car here at the tracks in Japan. People in Japan really like the cars that can handle really well but don't have that much power, because a lot of the tracks here are very tight tracks. And zip ties do count as attached to the car. And that's how we usually attach things. In fact, I need to go to the port today to get some very expensive, like $2,000 side skirts and attach them. Yes, Zane Maxwell, when I say dollars, I'm always talking about US dollars, because they're the type of dollars that most people around the world know. Bending Rodriguez. I can't read Japanese. I can only read the Japanese auction sheets because they're very easy to read. They're in point form, and a lot of the same comments come over and over again. So I've just learned how to read the ones that show up on auction sheets. And there's I can read the hiragana and the katakana. I've been able to do that for 15 years or so. But the kanji is very difficult to learn how to read. Even for Japanese people, it takes a very long time to learn how to read that. And for me, I haven't gotten to the point where I feel like that's necessary, but it's on the back of my mind that I'd like to learn how to read that sometime. I don't want to, Bender, I don't want to sell the Nissan Caravan. It works as a very nice little tool shed for our office. And I want to eventually restore it to pristine condition and put an RV26 into it. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'd love to do that. And Bill, you're probably right, spot on with the itchy nose equals radiation. Let's have a look at some more cars. Mudasser sent in one. Let's have a look at that one. I don't know what it is, so we'll find out. And probably best to let me know what type of car it is that you're showing, because if it's a car that I don't like, I don't want to show it. CAA Tokyo. Tohoku, pardon me. Okay, a Honda Odyssey. Not a car that most people would think is that great. If you haven't seen the videos already and you're interested, maybe take a look. These are really cool vehicles. The absolute version of it has, I think 200 horsepower, and then front wheel drive or four wheel drive. And although these are fairly old now, they're 15 years old, they still have styling that looks great today. In fact, there are two versions of the Honda Odyssey after this, and I still feel like this is the most modern looking one. It also has a great interior, and it's a 7-seater, even though the back seats are really small. These are great value for money. You can pick them up for $1,000 or so, and in really good condition. Like, take a look at this one. Has 100,000 kilometers. The body on it is good with some well done repaint. That's what W1 means. W2 means fair condition repaint. Has some corrosion on the side that, for me, for this type of car, it's so easy to buy at a cheap price in good condition without corrosion that I would pass on this one. But it says interior dirty, seat wear, side mirrors scratched, underside surface rust, arrow part, underside scratched, exterior small scratches, exhaust leak on it, navi doesn't work, and right front door is misaligned. Okay, so this one would be a no-no for me, but I could see this selling for about $400 or so. What auction is this one at? CAA Tohoku. Yeah, $400 or so. Starting price is $100. If I were buying one of these, I'd get one for about $1,000. Spend the extra money to get one that's in better condition than this, so I don't have to repair anything. Really good value for money, and love the 200 horsepower engine. It's like a sports car engine. It's like a lot of the minivans here in Japan have either two, you know, just regular engines, nothing special about them at all, and then they'll have a V6 which will be more torquey and less revvy. This one has a high revving engine. The 2400 will rev to like, I don't know, 75 or 76 or something. It gets most of its power halfway up, and so it doesn't feel like a fast car until you start flooring it, and then the handling of it because of the double wishbone suspension front and rear, and then that high torque at the high RPM makes it feel really cool for a minivan. And then they're kind of like a tall station wagon, so not really like a minivan either. This is one of my top cars for picking the car that I was going to buy 4 years ago, and I ended up buying a bigger van, but I do very much like these. I don't see any more that people are sending in. Somebody sent in a UAZ van. Elias, let's have a look. Oh, that one's USS. Sorry, can't take a look. Subaru 360. Okay. All right, that's cool. Now the problem with the 360 is it's reached the point in its life that no more parts exist for these cars. And so if you want to repair it, you have to salvage them from a spare car. And that's a shame because you're making one of the very few 360s around the world into a useless car so that you can get parts to keep yours on the road. This is the same dilemma I'm going through with the City right now, the Honda City, because it's also in the same condition with parts. In fact, there may be more 360 parts around the world than there are City Turbo parts, because the City Turbos didn't sell in huge numbers back in the 80s. So they don't know what year this one is. The seller doesn't say anything about it. That's funny. You could probably look it up with the VIN number, but if you called Subaru and said, I'd like you to tell me the date of this Subaru 360, they would probably shake their head at you and say, there was no such thing as computers back then, and so we don't have that data. Some book out there might have it. Mileage is unknown because 5-digit odometer. I don't even know the years that they sold these in, but they were in the 60s. It's that 360cc engine I think they put out somewhere around 11 horsepower. Auxiliary 3.5 with interior and exterior C. No AC, manual transmission. It says windshield rock chip, interior scratched and dirty and ripped. It's been color changed. This isn't the original color. What color is this? They called it pearl white. I don't know how I feel about old cars with a pearl paint job. I think sometimes it can look good, but sometimes a flat white will look better than a pearl because it'll be immediately identifiable as not being an original paint, because back in this time there were no pearl paints. Windshield rock chip, interior scratch, dirty rip, I already said that. Rear glass is cloudy. Yep. Sometimes older glass will do that because it's layered glass. And it has a plastic in between so that when it shatters, it doesn't shatter. Like when it breaks, it'll stay together, and then that film in between will get cloudy. It happens on Minis and 8.6s. Interior has been painted, underside surface rust, corrosion, and painted. Oil has a minor leak in it, and the seats have been changed. It actually looks really good, judging by the pictures. The body is all good with minor paint crack over here, no signs of corrosion. It has no doubt had corrosion repairs done to it, and it's such a lovely looking car. This car, I'm going to pull out some of the limited weeb information that I know. What show is it? Lupin the Third car. This is like the star car in this movie. And when I first saw this movie, I was like, wow, that car's rad. And I love how they were always hanging out of the sunroof. And the way that they portrayed the car in the anime, it just looks so cool. Are they making a live action of this? That's weird. So the original movie is Studio Ghibli, which is also, Spirited Away and Mononoke and Totoro, very popular studio. So this is one of their first movies back in the 80s. We have 9 more minutes. What are we going to do? Jesus says, I love 80s cars, Toyota, Honda, Nissan. What prices can I expect to pay? 80s cars have gotten to the point where they're starting to get expensive because they're getting few and far between, especially for anything that's desirable, but there's going to be big differences in prices. You can still get 80s cars for really cheap if it's something that people don't usually like, but if it's something that's loved, it can be rather expensive. You can see a good, probably one of the most expensive 80s cars is the DR30 Skyline. These can be over 2 million yen sometimes. Here's a picture of a toy car. So still less expensive than the R32 GTR, but they were slower cars and probably not, well, not probably, they weren't as popular as the GTR when they were new cars, although they were a very popular car. What other 80s cars from Japan were very popular? The 86 is another one. 86 is less expensive than the DR30, but not by much. 1.5 million is common. Here's the 86. I know everybody already knows, but here's another toy car. What is this? Google. Why do you think I want to look at toys? Other 80s cars. I got one. Here's an 80s car. I actually owned one owned one of these, and it was awesome. This is one of my favorite 4x4s ever. Mine only had 3 cylinders though, so if you drove fast enough it would shoot fire out of the back. I mean, it was supposed to have 4, just one of the cylinders didn't work, a bent valve. So cool. Probably the only Russian car I like. I can't think of any other 80s cars that are super expensive. Oh, Pete, you're right. Yeah, the looping car is a Fiat. I feel like such an idiot. I knew that. Yeah, the Subaru 360 is not the same car as the Fiat 500, even though they look like similar cars. Especially from a side profile, they look very different. Fiat 500 is the iconic Mini car, other than the Mini itself. And then the Subaru 360 is way less popular. It just has very similar styling cues and has an engine in the rear, which would have been the same. The Subaru 360, the way that you can tell is it has kind of like a wave side, like the fenders front and rear attached in the center between them. Let me show you. So if you look at the side profile here, from this fender it goes up and then down and then up again, whereas the Fiat 500 just has regular looking fender flares. But if you look at them side by side, they're not going to be that, they won't look the same. Also, suicide doors, cool. Unless you need to jump out of the car while it's moving. But when do you ever have to do that? Kind of a stupid name, come to think of it. I don't think the Corolla DX from the 80s is really that expensive. Mr. Zane Maxwell, Corolla DX from the 80s. This would have been called the Levin or the Sprinter here in Japan. And prices are going up, but not like stupid high prices. Like the 86 in good condition now costs more than it cost when it was a new car. Same as the DR30. These ones here in the same condition would still be less than they cost as brand new cars, I think. And then people swapped in the 8.6 engines into these. CLK 759 says more key cars. Like K cars maybe. I'm not a huge fan of K cars, to be honest. I think that they are useful, but I've been living in Japan for long enough that they have stopped being quirky and weird to me. Okay, Kingston, let's see what you said. What do you find the biggest difference between Evos and Subarus in the JDM market, both financially and mechanically? Okay, so Lancer Evolutions 1 through 9, every one of those is more expensive than the Impreza of the same year. And then they stopped making, like the Evo 10 is worth less than the Evo 9 because it became a bigger and less powerful car. So it's not comparable. At that point, the Subaru Impreza was more expensive. And then now that they don't make an Evo anymore, the Impreza is kind of seen nowadays as the performance four-wheel drive car of Japan. Whereas previously, the Evo would have been the car that most people would consider the better car of those two. The Evo, when you drive both of them, the Evo always felt like it's faster. The chassis was stiffer and much easier to modify or to keep it in a higher modified form and keep it alive on a racetrack. Now, neither of them are really popular track cars here in Japan, although it sounds like they probably should be. I think they're probably more popular as track cars outside of Japan. It seems like front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive track cars make the majority of all of the track cars here. And then you do see some four-wheel drive ones. Most of the people who take their Subarus or Evos onto the track are more amateur and not really as high-skilled or have as well-developed cars. They're like, I have a performance car, so I'm going to take it on the track. And the Impreza is one of the only high-end performance cars nowadays in Japan. There's the Fairlady, there's the Impreza. Maybe you can call the new 8.6 a performance car, but it's a little bit slower than those two. And so the Impreza kind of is the winner, I guess. It lasted longer than the Evo did. And then people bag on the Evos for being not very reliable. That's not what I've found. Being in this position gives me unique insight in seeing which cars are reliable and which ones aren't, because I literally go over thousands upon thousands of auction sheets for any make and model. And you can see which ones are unreliable because you see the same things over and over and over again on some of them, like, for example, head gaskets on a certain car. Head gaskets on a Subaru aren't really a problem here in Japan as they were in other countries because they had a manufacturer's defect in other countries that they didn't share here in Japan. So that's not so much of an issue. Leaking oil from the Subarus is a problem, and then the boxer engine makes it harder to modify than a regular inline four. Jesus says, have you done videos or walkarounds where some of the 80s cars are awesome? I mean, most of the walkaround videos are just a single car, so you can go take a look at some of the 80s cars that we've done before. We have plenty of them on the channel. Yeah, for me, between the Evo and the Subaru, I would say if I owned either of those cars, I really wouldn't want to modify them that much. I think they're both great cars right out of the box. And I feel like outside of Japan, a lot of people want higher horsepower cars. Inside Japan, people tend to want better handling cars because the roads here are very twisty. A set of tires will do much better to how fast your car is than upgraded turbo. And so for most people in Japan, that's less of a concern that if you raise the boost on a Subaru, you're going to get into mechanical problems. Oh, would you look at that? It's 12 o'clock. Mike's not back yet, so nobody gets a chance to say goodbye to Mike. But that's going to be the end here. And good timing, Jesus, because we're going to say goodbye at the same time as you're going to say goodbye. And so we'll be back again next week. Oh, we have a week vacation in case you're looking to sign up from August 12th to August 16th. There's a holiday here in Japan, so we're going to be closed down during that time. But that's in 3 weeks from now. And then it's only 1 week we're closed down. But then when we come back, we're going to be super busy because people send us so many email inquiries every day that when we come back, we have like, let's see, 5 days plus 2. It's just like so many emails to get through, and it usually takes a week to get through all of them. But anyway, that'll be the end here. So hope you enjoyed spending time with me and asking questions. And Mike too. He's not here, so I mean, you can be honest if you think that it was fun to hang out with him. I won't tell. I actually will. Be careful what you say. That's going to be the end here, so bye for now, everybody.